Hey, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Spotlight. We've got a lot to talk about today. My name's Marilyn Hemingway, First Vice President of the Georgetown NAACP 5520. And welcome to Spotlight. We're going to be talking about, we got a new member of the NAACP. Woo, we're so happy and excited, and we'll introduce you to our new member. We're going to talk about recent events in Georgetown and upcoming events Juneteenth, and civic engagement and other happenings in the community for the next hour. And hopefully we'll get you all connected. But before we introduce my co-host, let's check out our opening. We'll see you in a second.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to put a hand of protection.
So, folks, I'm back, and let me bring on our co-host, Education Chair, Miss Ebony Hughes. And Ebony, you're third Vice President?
Yep, third VP.
And I'm environmental chair. She's education chair. I'm environmental chair, y'all. I be forgetting sometimes. It's, my age. And say that again.
Look great.
Well, thank you. This is a new. My aunt blessed me with some outfits when I went to North Carolina last week. So, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's bring on our president, Marvin Neal. Marvin, how are you?
Juneteenth. And Marilyn, you're the second vice president.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Reminding me. Look, it's a lot of things going on. Ebony is tuning in from a graduation, Ebony, you were telling us?
Yes, my little cousin graduated from Lexington High. We're real proud of him. He's going out of state too. I forget the school in Virginia. So
wow.
Close to him.
Congratulations to your little cousin. Yeah, we always celebrate our good news. And we do have some good news for one of our members. Our first vice president, Deontay Winchester, he honored us by giving us a new member.
No trouble.
We welcome to the NAACP Miss Princess Queen Dion Rain Winchester, who was born yesterday.
Yes.
And she's so cute.
Yes.
Already a princess. And I gotta show, why is she a princess? We got evidence. She got diamond passy. Look at that.
Man.
Isn't she cute? And she cute. So y'all, this is our new member, the beautiful daughter of our first vice president, Deontay Winchester. And we are just so happy to welcome her to the NAACP and also to the world. And she's just a cutie, and we can't wait to meet her. And that's actually one reason we all went and got our vaccines and stuff to protect each other. And so we can meet cute little babies and everything. But we want to wish Deontay and the family congratulations, our best wishes, and welcome to our world, Miss Dion Rain. I love little babies. They just remind us that we can just all begin again. And, all the troubles in the world, just babies just kind of remind you that there are good things that happen too. And we're just excited to have her with us.
Yes.
And y'all, I hear my cat back there about to freak me out. I heard something usually I don't hear, but it's my cat. I think it's my cat. Here's another picture of her. Hello, world. I'm Dion. Miss Dion Rain, born June 11th at 4:53 in the morning, weighing in at 5 pounds. It's 18 inches. She's long.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah. I love the outfit.
Yes, she is so cute.
I love the outfit.
You wait till she put on a little trouble outfit. Oh,
I know, right?
Hey.
I think we did see one, didn't we?
It's on the way.
Yeah, at the baby shower. Yeah, well, it's on the way. Good. And speaking of outfits, so once again, congratulations to Deontay. Speaking of outfits, Marvin, your hat, Juneteenth hat.
Yes.
The styling and profiling.
Is that leather?
Yes, it is.
I just realized it's leather.
Just the front
oh my
part.
gosh, I love that.
I love it. I need one.
I'm gonna try to find you all one, okay? If
Do that.
if I do, it's gonna be a gift.
All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Deontay have one now. I have to work my way down because there's only 2 in the store. I got those 2, but she's getting some more. I said, no, people are gonna want some, so I'm coming back.
Yes.
Okay? Yes. So I'm gonna go back today.
That's
I can't tell you
right.
the secret, but I'm going to get it for you.
But you know
That's
what?
Right.
Funny, because I only learned of what Juneteenth meant up until I don't know how many years ago, but in my adult life, we were not taught that in school. What it means.
Well, in the Southeast, and I should say in the South, because the Texas is in the South, but the Southeast, our part, it's Emancipation Day that was celebrated. And even Charleston, Georgetown used to have Emancipation Day parades. And it's another reason we celebrate Watch Night, because Watch Night was the night that enslaved persons were in the churches waiting to hear if they were freed. And I'm going to let you explain Juneteenth, Ebony, since you brought it up. But in Georgetown, many people don't realize February 23rd, 1863 is our Emancipation Day.
Mm-hmm.
That's our Emancipation Day in Georgetown, even though traditionally we celebrate it January 1st. And I think that shows that depending on where you lived is when you found out
you were free
about the Emancipation Proclamation. But Ebony, go ahead and explain Juneteenth. That gives us a little background, but go ahead and tell us about Juneteenth.
I tell you what, you caught me way off guard because I was thinking Miss Jeanette Graham was going to be on to talk about it. So please.
Well, we got the flyer, but give us the history why we celebrate Juneteenth.
So I'm not clear with exactly the year, but this is what I do know. You know, whenever the enslaved people were learning that, you know, they were going to be free, not everybody found out at the same time, obviously because of communication, a number of different reasons, geography, but Texas and a lot of the lower states, a lot of enslaved people still worked on plantations, not realizing that they were free. And until there was a certain period in time whenever they finally got the message that you were free, and that's when they could celebrate. So that's why we celebrate Juneteenth, is because that was finally when, you know, we all realized we are now free, which was a wonderful thing. But it also brought on a great challenge of wondering, how do we go from here, for a number of different reasons. So that's generally how we celebrate it.
So I'll give you a clue, Ebony, on the actual date that they learned in Texas. And it has, so they found out in June.
Okay.
And they found out on the 19th.
19th. I do know
so
that.
They combined June and 19th to make Juneteenth. 1865, 2 years after basically the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. December 31st, 1863. No, 1862, but everybody found out January 1st, 1863. That's why we have watch night services bringing in the new year. Yes. They were waiting in the new year. And it goes once again what you were saying, geographically, people found out at different times. Because clearly in Georgetown, we didn't find out till February 23rd. That's why it's important that we know our history and everything, and that Janet McCourt Graham spoke to you and gave you that information. One thing I want to throw out how deep this is. People just think the Civil War was a North-South thing. There was actually a Civil War battle in Arizona. Oh, wow. And I didn't learn that. Speaking about learning things later in life, I was in my 30s. I was living in Arizona, and that's how I found out. that there was a Civil War battle in Arizona. So this thing about slavery and Civil War, it's not just North and South. This is the entire country.
Right.
This is who we are.
So,
yeah.
Marilyn, and shout out to Miss Jacqueline Williams. She and Tracy Miller here. They put out some really great comments back in 1865 about the generals during that time. They went to Texas to deliver the proclamation to those in Texas, which happened either 3 years after the original proclamation. So people were still working for free, enslaved 2 or 3 years after all of this happened. You know, that's a long time. They kept people slaves, and you know, and not only in Texas, but many places. Can you imagine the plantation owners that never told their slaves that, and they found out ultimately years and years later?
And also, Ebony, in that proclamation, it applied to states that had succeeded from the United States, leaving slavery intact in border states and the southern states under northern control. Okay. In addition, the promises of abolition of slavery was contingent on the Union Army winning the Civil War, which didn't happen until April 1865. So you still had people enslaved in the southern states, even though Abraham Lincoln already had declared in 1863 that all slaves, and all this tied to Juneteenth, because Abraham Lincoln declared on January 1st in 1863, which was intended, and many were told to free all the slaves, but they all did not free the slaves. It's the same thing. A lot of things correlate with what's going on today. But in August 1862, President Lincoln wrote an open letter to Horace Greeley, in which so Jacqueline Williams talked about it on the page here, the editor of the New York Tribune, in which he described his actions as intent to preserve the Union rather than to abolish slavery. Okay, but after that, Lincoln wrote again, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do that also. And if I could save it by freeing all slaves, I would do that. So whatever it took to get people free, Abraham Lincoln was willing to do. That's why he was killed now. Okay, right. So there's a lot to be said there, you know, and then Granger delivered General Orders number 3, which said the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with the proclamation from the executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involved equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. That's where your 40 acres of a mule all came from, you know, which we never received. And that's why we're still screaming for reparation today behind the same situation here. Because as the South today, you know, just look at the states that's still trying to take back voters' rights. You know, it all correlates trying to go back to the Confederate, you know, that they never accepted that they lost the war.
Never accepted. Just like they can't accept this whole insurrection thing. But I know we're talking about Juneteenth, but
yeah.
Well, it's all tied together though.
It's one and the same.
It's a thread that goes through all of this. You know, there's I can't remember, and I'm going to do the research and bring it back on another show, Spotlight. But there were slaves until the 1960s down in, it's either Alabama or Mississippi, I can't remember. They simply did not allow families not to get education.
Yes.
Kept them on the plantations. And when I say enslaved, directly, they never left slavery.
They never left.
And didn't know until people realized they were down in the back of these plantations in the deep woods, and got to them and told them, and these families came out of enslavement. But if you think that's extraordinary, it's actually not extraordinary, because the prison industrial complex system is simply an evolution of slavery.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you said that, because I think we probably need to have a whole other show about people. This is one thing I don't like when people say, well, it happened a long time ago. What does it have to do with people right now? It has a lot to do with what's going on right now. My grandfather, when they abolished slavery, they just came up with other legalized ways to enslave people. And one of those things was enslaving children and making them work in an agriculture setting. In other words, on a farm for free. And that was legal. It's the same thing going on now with institutionalizing and making profits off of people who are in prison. And the same thing, my grandfather used to talk about how, okay, yeah, once they freed the people, they really didn't have land or anywhere else to go. So what a lot of these slave masters did was they made an agreement with these former slaves to work, to continue to still work the land, and they would give them part of a yield, which is now called sharecropping. So my grandfather was a sharecropper, and I remember growing up with stories where my mother said that they went without Christmas and clothes and gifts for 3 or 4 years. So my grandfather could save up enough money to buy his own farm. And that was, you talking about, my mom lived through this. My mom is only 50 something years old. This thing here runs deep, and it still affects people right now.
And that's huge, Ebony. When you look at, it's still systematic oppression, systematic. If you just look at what's going on now, even with the way the prisons are handled right now, remember that policemen came out of the KKK of controlling enslaved people. So all these things, it's a systematic approach and change. That's why it's so hard. That's why we continue to fight those situations right now, with police reform and stuff of that nature, because it still is a form, it still is a form of enslaving people, a systematic issue that we have to continue to fight and, and fight for reform. Because it still came off the back of enslaved people in a generation where white supremacy still wants to hold on to that which they don't want to change. And we just looked at it through the housing situation we just dealt with in Georgetown.
Right.
Yeah. Using the code words, racist code words about our property values will decrease, crime will rise. This goes back, and it goes back from the beginning of this country. Really, it's just the words may change, but the meaning doesn't change. And right now, I think, Ebony, are you reading the book Color of Law? I know Marvin and I are reading it. Marvin, do you have the cover to show? I don't have it near me to the cover. There you go. Stop right there and back it up just a little bit. There you go. You got it. The Color of Law tells the history of housing in America on the local, state, and federal government levels, what they deliberately did to keep blacks separated from whites, redlining, segregation. And this includes just the GI Bill, housing for veterans. Blacks were left out of that. This includes the suburbs with the covenants and suburbs that said no blacks allowed. This includes sundown towns where at sundown blacks had to get out. This includes public housing. That public housing was first built for white families during World War II, because the way that our economy worked changed.
Yes.
And all the men had to go off the war. Most of the men went off the war, and women came into the minorities, black people and Chinese, other minorities got into the work system in good paying jobs, and women. Yes. But they needed housing for these folks. But they made sure white people got the housing, public housing, folks. Project. And then when blacks needed it, they made sure blacks did not get their housing. Blacks literally were homeless working in these factories, and that was very deliberate by our government. And I recommend, and I know Marvin does, read The Color of Law. That gives you that entire history that it impacts us to this day.
Yes.
And those same words, and I highlighted it in the chapter in my book, and shared it with a group of folks. Those same words were used in the Wedgefield situation.
That's true.
The exact same words.
Yes.
Exact same word.
Exact. Our property values are going to decrease. Crime will go up. Same words. The exact same words. And I don't know what we need to do to really just stop this. And I think it's a black and white thing of what we need to do, and what I wanted to get into, and we are getting into, but I want to be a little bit more direct about it and tie in Juneteenth. We've talked about the history of Juneteenth, and it's a wonderful celebration. In Georgetown, it's going to have a celebration sponsored by Howard. We'll put the flyer up later on in the show. But I don't want people going to Juneteenth if you have not voted in the Georgetown city election.
Come on.
Because I was at 17% turnout or 18% turnout is unacceptable. And if we show up at Juneteenth without doing the work we need to do as engaged citizens, then we're just performing.
That's it.
We can no longer afford to perform as a community. We've got to put the work in.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that up today because this touches on the affordable housing situation recently. It's a small group of people who are out here speaking up on behalf of the community. And we have one or two new people coming in, and that's great. But Wedgeview showed up with, what, about 80 people, you would think, until the last vote when they kind of knew what was going to happen. And as soon as they got their way, they got up and they left.
They did.
And I'm going to say with Black folks, there might have been 10 of us there.
Yep.
Out of the whole county.
The whole county.
Who were there speaking up, fighting for affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
We can no longer, as a community, afford to show up for the nice, fun events and not show up for the work.
Right.
Because it is harming us. We are harming ourselves.
Yes.
This goes also to education. We can no longer afford not to show up to school board meetings. I know people are busy, but we all got family members. If you can't go, send someone. Send someone.
Right. Right.
You know, and so they can take the message back and get more of you out next time. Plan it. We've got to be more deliberate, strategic, and engaged in our own freedom.
Marilyn, you hit it on the head. You know, we ask for things that we are not willing to fight for. And we live on the back of our ancestors, but we forget how we got here. And we are talking about a lot of things that we say, well, you know, I got it this way and my children need to go through the same process. No, they need to learn from the process. They don't need to go through the same process. But because we go back when we try to send them through the same process, it's like send them back to relive history. No, we don't need to relive it. We need to understand it and move forward from it. But we have to, as we say, educate, motivate, and activate. And activating means we have to continue. We have to vote our way through these systems. We have to vote our way through. And we don't understand, obviously, the importance of voting when you're voting 17% within the city of Georgetown. Now, at the countywide, we voted 78% just in the general election. So what does that tell us? There must be a form of oppression or a lack of motivation and education in those areas. And when I challenge them on one thing, don't just show up at Juneteenth, but show up willing to be educated on the process of voting, because it's important. Juneteenth, we came out of slavery because of a vote that brought us out. And someone sacrificed that. Abraham Lincoln got killed behind it. Everybody that fought for voting right got killed. They got killed behind it. You know, because when voting right comes, it's not only it comes with the rights and of freedom and equality. You know, it seems as though the Confederacy is fading away as we vote. We have to vote it away from us. You know, because that's a private thing. Confederacy is private right now. It has nothing to do with public movement. That's why they try to sneak and put it in these different areas, like the VFW in Georgetown, where they have a monument there sitting aside, you know, Vietnam War and all these other wars and stuff, which is not deserving. It's not deserving. And we had Black people voted and spent money to put that Confederate monument there. Black people sent money there. So we need to actually start researching and calling out those that's doing these things behind the door. You know, it's the same as the housing situation. You know, same as the housing.
Well, Mr.
We voted ourselves out of the housing situation. We already were in. We voted ourselves out.
Right.
Go ahead, Ebony.
You know, I want to articulate this in the best way possible, but it just seems as in this reoccurring theme in the United States that sometimes when there is a law, certain people it applies to and other people that it does not. So let's start from the very beginning. The Confederacy was defeated. Okay. That was a state within itself. And if you were to fly a flag for a country that the United States has defeated on its own soil, to me, that would say that is treason. But then you move on to now the slaves are free, but it applied to some and didn't apply to others. Then you move on into integration. I grew up in PD. My dad went to CHOP-E. Integration had happened years ago. They didn't integrate Pleasant Hill until the 70s. How did that happen? Why wasn't anybody held accountable? And that's the same issue we're dealing with right now. Integration happened years ago, but they didn't actually integrate the schools until way later. And it's the same thing that's going on right now, that these rules and laws can be made, but the people, that's why we have to be so careful about who we vote for when we put them in these places. I mean,
if you think about it, Ebony, what you're saying, we talk about integration now in the 70s. But remember, everything that moved forward, even in Georgetown, the NAACP was the leading force behind the change, even with the integration, you know, and single member district. All these things came because of a consent decree order. These schools were built and integrated because of consent decree order. Okay?
Which we're still under.
Which we are still under, still fighting for equal employment and equal pay for Black administrators and teachers right there in the school district. We're still fighting for that right now.
Stop saying this slavery thing happened so long ago. Why can't we just move on? The same values and entitlement that was instilled in the people back then is still the same way they're handling stuff right now. That's why we're about it. That's why you need to participate and be involved.
But check this out right now, you know, and kudos goes out to what's his name there? Bethany Giles, Dr. Bethany Giles. She now is the deputy superintendent, one of the two. The other one is Dr. Tyrone Davis, deputy superintendent. Okay? But the superintendent has a master's. Both of them are doctorates, certified. See, these are the things that we have to fight through. And I'm not knocking the superintendent. I would take the job too. But we had the same challenge during that process when people were in place to actually make those things right. When you had two certified Black doctorate that applied, which the position said doctorate preferred.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? But people were still in place, like us, that was convinced that, oh, we'll be fine with the masters. If that was a Black with the masters and the whites with doctorate, it would have been the total opposite. That would have been justification for them not selecting the Black in the same condition. You have to be overqualified, certified twice as much. And that's the way it rolls. And that's bluntly right in our face.
Right.
It's segregation with another name. And some Black folks who say integration didn't work. I think the real argument is we never really integrated. We've never really integrated in this country. Because even when they attempted, Ebony, you are correct. Brown versus Board of Education was 1954. In the South, most school districts didn't integrate until 1970, 71, 72.
Yeah.
That includes in Georgetown, not only Pleasant Hill and CHOP-E, but Wynyard Howard.
Yeah.
I think Hal Jean Brown, and I can't remember the name of the other young lady, just this year are celebrating in 1971, 50 years They were the first 2 Blacks to graduate from Wynyard High School. That's 50 years ago.
Wow.
Kudos to them on 50 years. Kudos to them for being the first. Can you imagine? And they're celebrating 50 years. That's our lifetime. That's my lifetime. That's Marvin's lifetime.
That's still within our lifetime.
That's in our lifetime. You know, we've talked about this before. The battle is not that over. It never was over. And there's some school districts that simply after Brown versus the Board of Education literally shut down.
Yep.
Shut down for years. It didn't educate white kids or Black kids.
Yep.
All because they didn't want to integrate.
So integration didn't happen. It really never happened. And even in busing in the Northeast, there was violence over busing trying to integrate schools.
Right.
You know, if you know who's really with us, our present president right now, Joe Biden, as much as I like him, Joe Biden was against busing. His vice president called him out on it.
Yep.
And she wasn't lying. People got upset with her because she was telling the truth.
But you know, that's the thing. We need to stop.
Go ahead, Ebony.
We need to stop this just because it's my friend or just because I know someone. We have to call each other out. It's some of us in the Black community that are holding us back. And I don't know if that comes from greed, whether that comes from lack of education, because that was part of the problem back then was education. Do you realize you're still being
We lost your audio, Ebony.
Sorry.
There you go.
I don't know why some people think that, you know, there is still no oppression. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because it's the same people, it's the same mentality that after the Civil War, they created the myth of the Civil War. It's the same thing. You know, it's why they're now having meltdowns over critical race theory. And critical race theory is simply giving the whole picture of our history. But we have to remember, after the Civil War, immediately the myth started. The great myth of, you know, they weren't traitors, that they were fighting for this noble cause. And I mean, the lies that we were literally taught in our history books, not even mentioning the enslavement of a people. Or if it was mentioned, maybe a couple of paragraphs in the whole book, but you sure got those Civil War heroes, those Confederate generals. Look at every single military base except for one in the South is named after a Confederate general. What sense does that make? They were traitors. Traitors, and then they lost. They betrayed our Constitution. And it's all politics. Even Brown versus the Board of Education, you really should have been named Briggs versus Elliott from the case out of South Carolina. But the South Carolina senators did not want to be remembered, history to remember Briggs versus Elliott. So they made a deal to say we're going to name it the lead case out of 5 major cases challenging separate but equal would be Brown versus the Board of Education. That's how we know his Brown versus the Board of Education, but it was really Briggs versus Elliott that it should have been named after. So we've been told lies after lies after lies.
That's just, you know, in their efforts to dictate the narrative of history, even down to our maps are incorrect. You know, the countries that they wanted to seem to be powerful were drawn on the map way bigger. And the other countries that geographically, realistically were bigger, they were drawn in smaller because they want to prove power.
That's right.
And I hate to say it, you know, but it's the truth. You know, it's always a matter of dictatorship. That is the history of the white culture, is to conquer, destroy, take over, and control. You know,
and
every continent.
I would add the word extract.
And extract.
Extracting natural resources, extracting people. Even right now, as the 3 of us are speaking, and and our viewing audiences here, the G7 is meeting. The G7 are colonizers. It's the meeting of colonizers. Every single member of the G7, and China and Russia, who are not members of the G7, are extractors of natural resources from the continent of Africa.
Yes.
So we got to really realize how complex and nuanced this is. And it goes back to all your friends, are not necessarily your friends at times, but all your enemies are not necessarily your enemies at times either. And that's human nature for everybody. But what we need, Ebony, and what I think you were getting to in your description, is we need honesty, we need accountability, we need transparency, and we need truth. Because I voted for Joe Biden. And I'll tell you, I'm glad I voted for Joe Biden, because we all have a road to redemption. We all have a road to growth and change for the better. And I'll give that to Joe Biden. One of the best things to happen to him is to be vice president to the first Black president, because it forced him, even along the way he was growing, but it forced him to grow even more. And if that had not happened, he would not be president to this day, to the benefit of all of us. Because if nothing else, he brings stability.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
So we got to look at the complexity, the complication and nuance of who we all are, our history, and this country and this globe.
Yeah.
And really recognize why we are here and why we are blessed to be on this earth, and what we have to do to give back for our mere presence on this earth.
Right. It's true. The history has to be told. We need to tell our story, which is one of the NAACP themes for this year. We have to tell our story. I think a lot of the breakdown comes in also, with the perspective of, oh, well, again, slavery happened so long ago. Why are we dwelling on it? Part of it is that a lot of my Caucasian friends and white people in general, they have a long history of family culture. They know where they came from. They know their great grandparents and things of that nature. And they have this particular ideal that they live up to. Black people don't have that. Our history was ripped away from us. So the only thing that we know, some of us don't even know our great grandparents. I don't know some of them. And the sad part about it is some of the people that I can call on don't know them either, because they were enslaved people. I was speaking to a lady in the dentist office that I just ran up on, and she and I started talking, and she told me that her great grandfather could remember when his last name changed. And I had to stop and think about that. And I said, he remembered what? He remembered when his last name changed. You only really associate that with women when they get married, but he could remember people sold at the age of 7, and his last name changed from brown to green. That didn't happen that long ago.
If you think about that, just think about the lady that was talking about the Black Wall Street burning and bombing when she was 7 years old. The same thing, what she remembered. And yet today she have not forget, she's still 107 years old. She is still having nightmares about that bombing. She met with the Congress and talked to them about the bombing. And she still have nightmares. And she said every day she thinks about it. And she still can't afford to live on her own 107 years, 100 years later after that bombing of a Black 4-block inner city, 4 blocks, which were becoming one of the richest area of the United States. They bombed it to continue to oppress.
Yeah.
And there's so many means, they still bombing it today. They bombed it on, Front Street of Georgetown. They was pushing King Street of Georgetown, Front Street. They were pushing Blacks off of there. Yep. And if we're not careful, the way it looks right now in Georgetown, that West End, they're going to push Blacks off of there. So, minorities really need to get it together if they need a decent place to live. Because if they see the same thing they saw in Africa, Africa is was the richest nation in the world until folks went through there with their greed, with their greed, just continue to rip the heart out of Africa. Ivory, diamonds, all these things. I mean, it was a natural resources there. Then they moved the state line. They cut off some of Africa and called it Egypt. Bethlehem was in Africa. That's what people don't want to talk about. The Bethlehem of Africa. The birth of those things.
They're still in Africa, but
Africa. That's why I tell sometimes people need to really find their blackness. Every race need to find that blackness in them. There's some darkness in everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Everything came from black migration.
Yep.
To the four corners of the earth. So we got to continue to educate on.
I was reading something recently, going back to something you were saying, Ebony, about slave. This is current history. It's not past history. Ronald Reagan was 4 years old when Harriet Tubman died.
Wow.
And I've been reading about that recently because someone broke it down. And so y'all, what you were saying, Ebony, we talking about this was ancient history. It's not ancient.
Wow.
I was in college when Ronald Reagan was president.
Yeah.
And he lived much longer after that. And Marvin, you were in the military at the time.
I was in the military.
So we literally,
so well.
That's 2 generations removed from Harriet Tubman, who freed enslaved people.
Yep.
Who was a Union spy.
Yep.
Who's right here in South Carolina, whose grandnephew built a house here in Georgetown.
Yeah, Boley.
And married a local girl and raised his family here. As a matter of fact, there's no family here. James Boley, who's related to grandnephew, who the first family she rescued was the James Boley family. His mother's sister and James Boley, Harriet Tubman rescued, and later on he came to Georgetown. So we have direct descendants of Harriet Tubman right here in Georgetown County. We have the same with Joseph Hayden Rainey, the first Black U.S. congressman. His family's still living here, running around Georgetown, being productive and everything. It's right
here in Plantersville.
Right.
Loaded Plantersville. Go to church with me. Joseph Brady family. Go to church with me right here in Plantersville.
Well,
and listening to Tom Rice, in his visit to Georgetown, we have to really get clarity on who we put in office. He did not even know who Joseph Rainey was until Congressman Clyburn, he stated it right at the meeting, till Congressman Clyburn introduced it to the Senate to name the post office after Joseph Rainey in Georgetown.
Right.
It tells a story, and just the same person that we voted in now that think the minimum wage is good because it keeps Mexicans from coming into the United States. He's not talking about the impact that it is on minority, the minimum wage. He's talking about what he's trying to stop because of hatred, from coming into the United States. So he is comfortable with minimum wage for people that's really struggling.
And can I say that's not stopping Mexicans, Hispanics coming into this United States, because they need them on the plantations to grow our food. And if y'all, the same people, Black folks who found out that they were not slaves in the 1960s, they are barely making money in these plantations, these farms that are back in the deep woods, huge farms.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been back there because when I worked in the healthcare system, we would do clinics on these farms. And they're back in these backwoods. They live in barracks, barely minimally adequate housing, and they come through and they grow our foods. Right. So they're just a step above being enslaved. Especially if you have a congressman talking about, we don't want to raise the minimum wage because they might come in. They're here and he knows he's lying. They're here, but it's quietly done so we can eat and have our tomatoes in the grocery store and other things. That's why growing your own garden is revolutionary, because it breaks that cycle. It breaks that cycle in the grocery store that we have to go buy those non-nutrition tomatoes, because by the time they ship them to wherever they need to be shipped, all the nutrients are out. So big grocery stores are part of the problem too. Big farms are part of the problem. It's just another form of enslavement.
So, Marilyn, I just want to say this. I want the Republicans to back off of Vice President Kamala Harris. They're continue to ask her, well, when are you going to go down to the border? When are you going to go down to the border? When are you going to go down to the border? Here's the thing. Her whole thing is this. I'm going down to the border. But what we first need to identify is, why are the people fleeing from where they are? Let's address the root issue. Part of the root issue that we're having here is gentrification, because we're talking about extraction. They not only extracted physical things of value like gold and diamonds and natural oil and resources and things of that nature, they also extracted our talent. Why did they need slaves? Because of indigo. They had a talent that they did not know how to do, and they knew that the blacks over in Africa could do it the best. So they extracted a talent and people over to a whole new place so that they could capitalize on a worldwide industry of indigo, of rice, of ones that I am forgetting. And that wasn't good enough for them. Now, what I see in Charleston, we see white individuals doing sweetgrass baskets. Shouldn't that, in my mind, that should be left to the natives? They're getting ready to build this trail between Williamsburg County and Georgetown County up the Black River. Have they called the Native Americans to the seat? Have they called African Americans to the seat to bring their talents as a cultural thing? But what they're doing is they're calling these white companies to put together a cultural program to explain the history. Now, how accurate that would be, I don't know, but it would seem like it would be more feasible to let that type of profit stay within the culture that they're trying to capitalize on.
Well, Ebony, the same thing you said is extracting. You know, the history was always stolen or misconstrued. You know, just think about the Columbus theory of discovering America and all this other stuff. All of that would change if our younger generation is not paying attention to what we're saying right now. That will change, because we have to make some adjustments to understand what's really going on. And that Black River sits on the base of so many Black families right now that will not, and just look at the Native Americans. They're still sitting here. Mixed Native Americans. Some of them are mixed. I think you're mixed. Maryland mixed. All Native American folk. You know, and y'all don't get to say, you know, I want this. And they're extracting down the economic value by bringing in, you know, and my hat's off to the Gullah Geechee Chamber, you know, the Village Group, and those that continue to fight through these, try to absorb the value of our community, make sure that that is taught and understood. You know, my hat's off too, because that's why I support them, because of that reason. But we have to make sure our children understand what's going on, and make sure we put the value of our properties, heirs and all, clear that up and get it back into the hands of our children and our community, because there is so much value in property. But when it's in heirs, you've lost all your economic value. You can't do anything with it.
Right.
And then you end up losing it because developers are coming. So and I've said this before, and I know Marvin and Ebony understand, we want affordable housing. I want affordable housing. But let's be clear that when the county announced they did a study on affordable housing, how many people on the western side of the county were involved in that study? Because that affordable housing is going to impact the western side of the county. What does that mean? Those of you who have heirs property, developers are going to come to you and they're going to buy your land.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you they are not going to offer you market value. 2, they're looking for a family member who doesn't care about that land, so they could give them $1,000 or whatever, and they going, oh, I got some money in my pocket, and they're going to force you into court in front of a judge, and that judge is going to take your land away and give it to that developer. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many years you've been paying taxes on it, because you do not have clean title to that land. The heirs property law allows that to happen.
That's right.
It's not a jury of your peers. It takes one judge to say, "Ooh, that developer can do more with that land. Let me give it to him." That literally is what happens.
Right.
So with us announcing, the county announced, "Oh, we need affordable housing, and it needs to be on the western portion of the county," you now are putting pressure on the western portion of the county that a lot of people were not expecting, because county council members did not have town hall meetings, did not have any kind of meeting with their constituents telling them, explaining to them, we need affordable housing, but this is the impact.
Right.
This is the possible impact. And we want to get you ready because we represent you.
Right.
That didn't happen, folks. So yes, we are for affordable housing, but we need to do it where local people are educated and knowledgeable. So if you want to keep your land, you have an opportunity to keep your land. But if you want to sell your land, sell it from a place of knowledge and you get fair market value. But personally, I'm going to tell everybody, keep your damn land.
Hey.
Because if somebody wants it bad enough, enter a lease arrangement with them.
There you go.
Enter into a partnership with them.
There you go.
Don't sell your land. And all too often, for decades, Black folks, we've been put in a position that we are either forced to sell, or we don't have enough knowledge, and we just think this little bit of money that we've never seen before in one check, ooh, that's a lot of money to me. And it is. It's a lot of money to people who've never seen $5,000 in one check at one time, or $10,000. But that money goes like that if you don't know what you do.
Yep.
And once you sell that land that you only had to pay taxes on, and then now you got to pick up a mortgage.
Yep.
You in debt.
Yep.
You're in debt.
You don't have an asset anymore.
Thank you. And if you are in debt, you are enslaved to that debt.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they like creating debt. Because now you're like, I got to keep my job that I hate because I got to pay a mortgage now. I got to put up with this man putting his foot on my neck every day, calling me everything but the child of God, because I got to get that little check at $7.25 minimum wage an hour to make sure I pay a mortgage that I didn't have before. This is the conversations we need to have, and we're having today. And what I wanted to have, because we have got to get real, folks. Yeah. It's coming. It's coming to Georgetown. Yes, we want affordable housing, but we need to have affordable housing on our terms.
Right.
And you can only do that if you show up and get knowledge.
Right. Please show up and participate. That's the main thing we need to get out of. Yeah, Juneteenth is a great thing. We need to show up. We need to support Juneteenth. But after Juneteenth is over, we need you to participate and show up in the political world. And Marilyn, I don't know if you want to put this out there or not. You know, we're talking about all these things, and I think that people want to do it. They just don't know how. Where can people go that may have a house or have a land? They don't know what to do. It might be an heir's property, whatever the situation is. Where can people go to understand and learn about what they need to do with their land?
So the Center for Heirs Property is in Charleston, but they come to all counties. They're coming to Georgetown, working in part with the Gallagher Chamber of Commerce, Club 142, and I'm going to say this because they are, and the Georgetown County Democratic Party, and any other organizations that want to support this effort. It is nonpartisan, but these are the folks who are supporting this. We're going to have 4 workshops between now and November about heirs property and free wills.
Yes.
There you go. Marvin's putting it up. So the Center for Heirs Property in Charleston, you can go to, Google them, get the phone number. I'll post the phone number too. But definitely got to get your chamber. We're doing 4 workshops between now and November. We're finalizing the dates now, so we'll let y'all know so y'all can come and get your free wills done, and also learn about heirs property, getting your business together and getting organized. Y'all share this information.
Yes.
We've got to get organized. We've got to be engaged. And I want to give kudos to Snow and Woods law firm, Jackie Williams. She's on here. They did a free will clinic already. Y'all, when y'all ever hear of these Snow and Woods and other law firms doing free will clinics, to go to them, get it done. And these are simple wills, but this is starting the process of cleaning up these situations. And it can be done, but you know what we got to do, Ebony and Marvin? A lot of us have to humble ourselves and acknowledge that we don't know what we're talking about.
That's a fact.
You know, it is humble ourselves. Y'all, I work on it all the time, every day. To humble myself. No, I don't know a lot of stuff. But by saying that, you open yourself up to learning and doing. Amen. But a lot of us are like, just take for granted that somebody paying that taxes on that land. That land is always going to be there because you use it. And it's not if you don't get that paperwork together. In Africa, it was about community economics. It was about bartering. But in America, it's about European laws. It's about paper. Right. And I'm not even talking about the dollar bill. I'm talking about titles and deeds. That's the system we live in. So unless you got about $15,000 or more to travel to Africa, buy some land, and live someplace and support yourself, more than $15,000 actually. That's $15,000 just to go for maybe a 2-week visit. All right. So unless you got some money to move to Africa and live in that system in some of the countries, because Africa's a continent, and let me tell you something, all them countries not playing either. No. You are here in America, so you better learn the system and you better play it well. And I'm really tired of my people. I love my people. I love being Black. I love being Gullah Geechee. But I love being in America. This is who we are and where we are. Most of us are not even going to go to Africa in our lifetime. Let's be real about it. So you need to learn how to work the system you are in and beat the system. So we need to stop this stuff that these games we are playing by just showing up to Juneteenth and think also we pro-Black and we got it all together. That is performative. And we need to be engaged. And if you're going to be engaged, you need to get knowledge and you need to work the system. Because I'm done, folks. I'm done. I'm still going to be out here working. I'm working, but my patience, I'm getting older. And you know, and when you get older, you get really impatient with stuff. There you go. Why we can't raise it a little bit higher, Marvin? Why we can't wait? It's the truth. Martin Luther King laid it out for us. If y'all don't listen to folks who have a little bit of knowledge, who are continuously gaining knowledge, that's why we are always reading. Y'all see folks right now, the three of us talking here, Deontay and others are constantly talking to each other. We're constantly reading. We're constantly learning. Y'all can do the same thing. Same thing. But I'm done. I'm done. I'm tired that there are people complaining, but you're not doing the work. Preach, please. And doing the work, maybe you can't show up to every meeting, but you could certainly send someone. Send someone. If they don't have gas, put $10 in their pocket and put gas in their car. If they don't have a car, y'all figure it out. Somebody got a car, call somebody up and say, y'all, they want to go, but they don't have transportation. I'm doing an event in Charleston in October, the Environmental and Energy Conference, and we got a grant to do it. In that grant, we put transportation money. If you register and you show up to the conference, you're going to get a gas card. If you're a single parent, father or mother, we got money. We're going to have a babysitting service on site. We have a budget. We're going to have sandwiches for lunch, Subway sandwiches for lunch. No excuse, y'all, not to show up. Because we are working to lower the barriers. I'm done. Well, get y'all acts together. Go ahead, Ebony. They'll find a way. You're right. They'll find a way to get to anything else, and I don't want to hear any complaints. So show up to Juneteenth. At least start there and educate yourself about the different things that they have planned for this weekend. It's going to be fun. I sure hope Mr. Wesley Gibson has some watermelons out there, because I know he's into and
some ribs and chicken.
Yeah, because Wesley got his garden going. Yeah, Wesley, me too. I got my garden outside. Please show up. That needed to be said, Miss Marilyn. So, what's the information about Juneteenth this weekend? I mean, like, what time does it start and all that? All right, let me put that up. All right. So Juneteenth here in Georgetown, sponsored by Georgetown Community, Howard High School Alumni Association, Soul Saving Station. That's next Saturday, Juneteenth. That's the 19th. And wait. It's starting at JB Beck parking lot and
9:30.
ends at Soul Saving Station. Y'all, it don't have the time on here.
It's 9:30.
9:30. Okay, 9:30.
Line
So
up
they're
is
gonna
at
parade
9:30 at
from
JB Beck.
JB Beck to
Right.
Soul Saving Station, and then they'll have the events: COVID testing, vaccine information, voter registration, housing access information. Vendors will be out there. We got phone numbers, and y'all go to our Facebook page. This is posted to the Facebook page for the NAACP, and be a vendor, be a supporter. Come on out. The phone numbers are on those on our page. So the phone numbers you will see. I also want to mention that Bucksport is having one. Also, Conway is having one. Charleston. Juneteenth is really getting bigger, and that's a good thing because that means that's when we were all officially notified that slavery has ended. The peculiar institution of slavery ended. But I also want us to remember we all had Emancipation Day too, different Emancipation days, and that's part of our history that we need to know. So come on out to Juneteenth. Anything else, Ebony and Marvin?
Well, there is one thing. The Village Group. They still have spaces in their summer program registration. So please go on the Village Group webpage and reach out to Ray Funny and those in the Village Group and make sure that your children get registered. That's a dynamic program over the summer. That's one of the, well, I would say it's the top program in the state. You know, they go from engineering to STEMs. They teach so much about STEMs and engineering, which is really, it's the roots of the Black community is STEMs. We came out of STEMs. We live STEMs. We are STEMs. You know, engineers and carpentries and mechanics and plumbers. That's our natural abilities. That's why we're here in America. That's where discoveries came from. STEMs. STEMs. Yeah. The White House was built off STEMs. All these things came from STEMs. Make sure that we understand and get out and sign up for those programs. There should be no open registration. Usually every year we have like a waiting list from 80 to 200 people waiting list. But coming out of COVID, we know people are delayed because things didn't happen last year the way we expected. But get on back out there. That's science, technology, engineering, arts. That's the Village Group. And that's what we are pushing, STEMs, over the summer. These children are really, I mean, stepping out of bounds, fighting for the right just to be educated still in our schools. Fight for STEMs. The other stuff gonna be there because it's systematic oppression that we're dealing with. STEMs belongs to us. Let's fight for it.
You know, and it really makes, and I know we're about to wrap the show up, but as you talk about STEM, it's amazing that they call it STEM now. But, you know, there's a book that a cousin of mine has, and I don't know what it's called, but it lists about 3,600 inventions that we enjoy today that was actually created by someone who was Black. Many of them might have been enslaved or women that could not claim the rights to that, and it was taken, and that's part of our generational wealth that we were not able to claim moving forward into today. It affects us today. Do your part, show up, participate.
And one thing I think we keep missing, vocational trade, we used to call it, is all STEMs. You know, number two, most discoveries came out of an oppressed state, trying to find ways to make it easier because enslaved people had it so hard. So they all these discoveries most of them came out of slavery and out of Africa. So, and I can't think of nothing yet that I read that was not created by Black people. Even the airplane, Black woman, all these things were STEMs. You know, Black woman designed the first aircraft. You know,
I think Marvin, people need to understand. And I know we got to wrap up and everything, and we wrap up. But I do want to say what you're saying with STEM. That's why as you were saying, why we brought here, and people need to understand it. So what does that really mean? we Galagichi, those who live along this coastline, we were brought from West Africa to the islands, Barbados, Bermuda, all those islands. So we related to all of them. We're cousins. South America, more enslaved West Africans went to South America than North America. They first went to the sugar plantations, then they were brought here because they knew how to control the water and manage the land to grow the rice and indigo. That speaks to engineering, science, builders, those trunks that our ancestors built, the canals that they dug out by hand with hand tubes, by hand.
Book Green Garden.
Brook Green, any
All the
plantation,
channels.
Brook Green Garden, all this, the bricks that you can walk around Georgetown, Charleston, Savannah, the tabby, the mixture of the oysters and the lime and the soil to create tabby construction material. Y'all, that's a forerunner of cement.
Yeah.
Comes out of Africa. The bricks, you can literally go into the bricks in these older homes because we built them and see the fingerprints, the finger marks of our ancestors. That's the Ancestor Finger Mark Project by Paul Garbarini and Natalie Days. They talk about that.
Yep.
They show the fingerprints of adults, but actually mostly children. That's what children were doing. We did everything on the plantations because the plantations were cities. So they needed engineers. They needed the people who can train the horses, who could build the carriages, the seamstress, the builders, the engineers to create the canals and the trunks. Europeans did not know.
Hello.
So STEM is what we knew. What has happened is this is something we trained the next generation orally. We trained by doing. So what do you do to break that? You create colleges. And you create and say, you got to have that knowledge and you got to have a piece of paper that says that you know that knowledge. And then what else do you do? We can prevent the enslaved from reading and writing. That's in the law to this day. Yeah. They may not enforce the law, but there's still states that never remove those laws off the books that say you cannot teach the enslaved to read and write. So you know you're disconnecting them from this system you're creating of college. And I don't care if it's technical, community, or four-year liberal arts college. Democracy, never ever forget, people. Democracy isn't because of that piece of paper. Democracy is because enslaved people believed in that piece of paper called the United States Constitution and forced this country to live up to that idea.
Just look at the 1619 project, Maryland, that's being blocked. Just look at states now putting law in place not to teach African-American history in the schools. And you hit it on the head. Everything went to a college. Look at vocational was taken out of the school. That affected us. That's why you have to fight to get those back into the schools. Every vocation that's available in one school should be available in all schools. Bottom line. Yeah, we busting people from here to there. That needs to stop because it's affecting children and everything else.
What they teach now in technical colleges that you have to pay for, they taught in high school for free.
We used to get it in high school.
Thank you, for free. So we have to understand our history. We have to understand critical race theory is about this understanding. It's about transparency and accountability and the holistic understanding of our history. And it will make all of us better. Because when you uplift, because history shows when the African-American community is uplifted, all communities are uplifted. Amen. That's why we have to work with other minorities, as defined by the full construct of race. Because there's no race, there's a human race. But there's no white or black. That was a system created to divide and conquer us and keep us all oppressed and suppressed. So what hurts black folks will hurt white folks. That's why poor white folks, y'all hurt too. But they've convinced you that your value is your whiteness. And there's no value to whiteness. There's no value to blackness, but there's value to human race.
Hello.
Now, with that said, I still ain't proud of being Black, because I know from whence I come, and that my ancestors worked and strived and sacrificed and had to deal with some foolishness for me to sit here and tell y'all what I'm telling y'all to this day. So I honor that. That's how we honor our ancestors. So just don't go to Juneteenth to eat some good food and have a good time. Go to Juneteenth and get knowledge and appreciate who we are in our history. Then you take that knowledge and put it to work. That's it. That's why we're here. You know, this Galagichi Binyar said, I totally agree, but our community has to get back to the understanding. That's why Marvin and I and Ebony and Deontay and our guests who come on with us every Saturday at 11 a.m., that's why we come on. We don't have to be here. I got things to do. Do I have better things to do? No. This is the best one thing that we can do. But am I a busy person? Yeah, we all are. But we love our community, we love who we are, and we understand the accountability and transparency that the ancestors have left us with, the responsibility. And if we dishonor them, then woe to us. So that's why I'm done. I'm done. It's been on my mind and my heart, Marvin. You know, we talked about it before we got on. You know, I'm done. I am broken. Y'all, life is short. It really is. Climate change, we destroying the Mother Earth that has provided for us. My good friend Zenobia Harper, Marvin's friend too, community garden. And I remember standing in the community garden with her saying, this is our abundance.
Yep.
Every time we walk out of our front door, it's our abundance. And we don't even take care of it. Literally, climate change is man-made. And it's mostly not Black folks. It's white folks, white males to be particular, because of corporations polluting our earth. But we got to fight. We got to do what we do to stay healthy. That's why you got to take vaccines. Yeah, I took a vaccine for selfish reasons because I got too much to do, and I'll be damned if I'm going to get sick from COVID and stop me from doing what I need to do.
Hello.
But y'all, some of us running out here talking about they put the microchips in us. Why you hold your smartphone that tracks you?
You know,
what sense does that make? Lack of knowledge.
This lady went to the Congress, stuck with it. It put magnetic. You know, it tried to put a key on her neck and the key falling off. And stuff, you know, it's just foolish stuff that's going on. You know, God, man. You know, you have people telling people they're putting chips. That's so foolish.
Foolishness.
And get your children vaccinated. Keep them safe because there is other strands that's coming, and they're not protected, and we don't know where that strand is going to hit them at. It's not going to be like this one. Could be worse. Could be nothing. But the vaccine gives you a measure of protection to you where you can withstand the virus. 500, 600,000 plus people did not die because someone putting a microchip in you. They died because they didn't get their microchip. Okay? Whoever wants to say that, it's fine. But it's foolish. Talk where people want to track you. You can find anybody you want to find. You can find them on the computer. So what's that foolishness about a microchip? You know, we found Bin Laden in the desert. Yeah. But just think about it. Saddam Hussein in the desert, underground. And you talk about a microchip? Man, let's get real about it.
Yeah. And this goes back to the STEM, the scientists and the engineers that we were, because Black women helped develop the vaccine.
Hello.
It goes back to
STEM.
Jackie Williams' instances, because the herbalists, the herbs, the mind power we had to recognize in nature, the herbs and things that benefit us. That's where we start. Start out right, folks. If you're not right with me, look, y'all started drinking water again, cutting out sugar, because I, my health, I know I gained COVID weight, but I got to be in fighting form. We all do. So we need to go back to the earth. That's science, y'all, to recognize that. Just because you don't have that piece of paper saying you're a scientist doesn't mean you're not a scientist.
Hey.
We've proven that time and time again. That's where we need to start. Protect our earth. Go back to the earth. Protect our waters. And then you take that knowledge and you evolve into greater knowledge. That's how you develop a vaccine. And people, because we want to get caught up in fashion and trends and conspiracy theories. It starts there, y'all. That's a sign of a weak mind. When you literally put a key on your chest about, why is it sticking? It's sticking because of your sweat. Trying to put it on your neck and it falling off, and you say, prove it to me. Why is it magnetized? Foolishness. Let's call it what it is. Foolishness. Do not come up on me with foolishness anymore, y'all. Time is running out. I hope God gives us all good long life, but we got to accept a lot of stuff and we got to move on it. That's all I got to say. Yep, dollar weed, you right, Jackie. Stuff right in front of us. You walk out your front door, our abundance is right in front of us. I'm going to leave that right here, Marvin, because I know we over time, an hour and 15 minutes, and people got things to do. But I want to thank everybody for sticking with us, hanging out with us. Thank you for the great comments and information, because we gain knowledge from y'all too. We are challenged by you, and it helps us to be better, do better in our community. Because one thing I do know, whether it's Marvin, Ebony, Deontay, and all the NAACP members, and those who are not NAACP members, but out here, Wesley Gibson, Jackie Williams, out here fighting, they're members of the NAACP, y'all, fighting for their community. That's what we do. This is what helps us get up in the morning and keeps us moving. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for Spotlight, brought to you by the Georgetown NAACP number 5520. We're going to see you again next week. I don't know if I'm going to see you again, but there's lots of stuff coming up. Juneteenth, maybe we'll do something live from Juneteenth. And but we want to thank everybody. And I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, a gathering place, the Gotta Get Your Chambers show. We're talking all things Juneteenth. Celebrate, liberate, educate, 4:00 tomorrow. Come on out and join out. I got so much information from folks about Juneteenth. I wanted to bring a whole bunch of folks on and talk about Juneteenth and what they're doing in their communities. Bucksport, Columbia, Charleston, Conway, Georgetown. So y'all come on back and join us. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we will see you next Saturday at 11 a.m.
We will be at 11 a.m.
We'll be someplace. Juneteenth. We'll do something.
We will be in Georgetown at Soul Saving Station, doing Spotlight from there. So
that'll work. That'll work. All right, Marvin. I'll see you later.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot. Right. Remember, we're stronger together. Bye-bye.